The latest zombie apocalypse movie 2024 has been released. Zombie movie lovers definitely cannot miss this movie. In year 9, Mantle just woke up. The news was reporting about a new virus. Because there is currently no effective treatment, many areas of the world have become out of control. Mantle is so used to this that he feels like these viruses are very far away from him. Until the afternoon when he went to the supermarket, he discovered that the people who came here to buy goods to take home were much more careful. It seemed that fear of the new virus was spreading. But Mantle did not follow everyone. He grabbed a bag of cat food and went home. The news was still reporting the latest news about the epidemic. 2 people have been infected in the country. At night, as usual, Mantle video called her sister, who suddenly looked very serious. She had just received notice that she would be boarding a plane to the Canary Islands tonight. Because her husband was in the military, the government had chosen an island as a refuge for their family. She was worried that Mantle would be lonely alone, so she hoped that Mantle could catch a plane there tomorrow. Mantle couldn't sleep all night, happy that he also had a happy and complete family. But a traffic accident suddenly happened and took his wife's life. If it weren't for the rescue helicopter from the hospital, Mantle would have died in the accident. After the shelter appeared, the family was left with only one cat. This time, when they took refuge in the Canary Islands, they naturally couldn't leave it behind. The radio was broadcasting the latest news. A new strain of the virus had appeared. The incubation period was shortened. From infection to the appearance of symptoms was only a few minutes. They told Mantle to go to the check-in hall with the cat, but while they were checking their tickets, the screen suddenly showed that all flights were suspended. Then everyone's phones rang at the same time. It turned out to be the government sending out a warning message, declaring the whole country in a state of emergency. A passenger suddenly went crazy and forced his way through the ticket gate. When the security guard went up to control the gun strapped to his waist, he was caught by the passenger. At this moment, everyone panicked and quickly ran out of the airport. Mantle followed the crowd out, but very quickly he got stuck on the way home. The roads in and out of the city were severely jammed. The more Mantle waited, the more impatient he became, knowing that the road would be closed for a short time. He quickly parked his car on the side of the road and walked the cat home. As the night was dark, Mantle approached his house. An ambulance passed by. He turned around and saw that his neighbor's house was surrounded by soldiers and a road leading straight to the house. Mantle was confused and did not understand anything, and in a moment, he saw his neighbor go crazy and be dragged away by 2 soldiers. Mantle still couldn't calm down when he got home. He didn't expect that the terrible virus would come so quickly. He slept in a daze until morning, when Mantle was awakened by his sister's phone call. She had already arrived at the Canary Islands. She revealed to Mantle that the government had decided to set up a quarantine zone to contain the epidemic. But many in the military opposed it because the more crowded the place, the more dangerous it would be. She advised her brother to stay home no matter what. After turning off his phone, Mantle decided to go to the supermarket to buy some groceries first. But there were many people who thought like him, and the shelves were all cleaned out. Mantle had to work hard to get a few boxes of food. Seeing the fighter jets flying over, Mantle immediately rushed to the tree next door. The store here had closed a few days ago, and there were still some supplies inside. Just as he finished packing and was about to deliver the goods, the sales clerk ran over, holding his injured arm. He ignored everything and cut himself in the store. Then a few more people ran screaming. Suddenly, someone rushed out of nowhere and pushed the policeman behind him. Mantle instinctively ran to stop him. After picking up the water pipe, he suddenly saw the other person running towards him. Suddenly, there was a gunshot behind him, and the police officer who had just been pushed over was floating around him. At this time, the sales clerk in the store had also turned into a zombie. Mantle felt that the world was changing too quickly. He picked up his bag and left in a hurry. After returning home, he followed his sister's instructions and searched his house from inside to outside, even installing surveillance equipment in front of the door. From then on, a group of soldiers came to the house, and he knocked on each door. They began to arrange the people to the designated quarantine area. Mantle and Mel lay on the ground without moving, despite the soldiers outside banging on the door. Only when they were tired of calling did they move to another house. 2 weeks passed in the blink of an eye. Mantle barely survived on solar panels. The food in the house was gone. He was forced to go out to find food. Before Mantle became a diving enthusiast, his diving equipment was once again put to use. After putting on his diving suit, he tried to stay in one place. Even if he encountered an infected person, Mantle would still be able to fight them. But after searching several neighbors' houses, Mantle still found nothing. Until Mantle entered a house and opened the door, he suddenly met an old woman. In addition, she was paralyzed in both legs. Her daughter had married before leaving, so no one paid any attention to her. Mantle agreed with the old lady, but he didn't have much food left to give her. The old lady laughed. She knew the situation here very well, and in the end, Mantle was guided by the old lady to find a lot of food, and even found a suitable motorbike. But then he could go further to collect supplies. The 2 villagers' lives were stable. Mantle thought that having a lover to accompany him was really good. Hopefully they could live like this until the epidemic ended. Until that evening, the old lady told Mantle to turn on the radio, and a woman's voice came on. She said the government-imposed quarantine zone was out of control. If any residents were still alive, they could come to the mouth of the Arusha River. She would take a boat to the Canary Islands. Mantle was very happy to hear that this was not his sister's refuge. He decided to take the old woman to the river mouth tomorrow to gather, but she refused because her legs were paralyzed, and it was inconvenient to walk. Mantle said very sincerely that he would not abandon any of his teammates. Early the next morning, he packed up all his digging tools and prepared to inform the old lady. But no one answered the other end of the walkie-talkie. Mantle immediately had a bad feeling and rushed to the old lady's house. He saw a pair of papers on the table hoping that he could live well. Unexpectedly, she passed away because she didn't want to be a burden to Mantle. Mantle was heartbroken. On the way back, he was absent-minded. As a result, he was pushed by an infected person. Mantle struggled to open the car door to fight the other person. When the infected person rushed towards him again, he quickly took out his fish-shooting spear and shot a shot. After returning home, he washed the arrow and confirmed that he had brought all the necessary things. Mantle drove his motorbike towards the mouth of the Arusa River, but before that he had reached the nearest beach. Although he was still clear of the road, his temporary shelter had been destroyed. The words he had heard on the radio were not a lie. He had to go to the Canary Islands. As he passed a stretch of mountain road, a large number of infected people suddenly appeared on both sides. Mantle's back was drenched in sweat. He suddenly ran to a temporary quarantine area. Mantle decided to take the risk and go through. Unexpectedly, a large number of infected people appeared from the tent. Mantle was so scared that he ran out of the quarantine area. As a result, he saw a pile of corpses in front of him. Because he was so scared, Mantle fell off his motorbike and lay on the ground. When the infected people were about to chase him, the motorbike refused to start, and the guests who were guarding him just abandoned their belongings and ran away. This place was very close to the river mouth. Mantle ran after the cat until his legs broke, and finally ran into the river mouth first. But the glass door was too weak and was quickly broken by the crazy infected people. Mantle used all his strength to run into the safe door and was able to shake off the zombies. But Mantle couldn't be happy that there were many boats at the river mouth but no people. He didn't know if the good-natured person on the radio had just left or had already been infected. Mantle didn't have time to care so much. He quickly found a speedboat and headed towards the Canary Islands. Along the way, he gathered many capsized boats. It was hard to imagine what they had been through. Suddenly, the canoe stopped. Mantle climbed up to the surface of the water and was caught by a corpse. Mantle was desperate. Would he be trapped and die at sea? Unexpectedly, at this moment, a large boat was approaching from afar. Mantle excitedly waved his hand, and soon he was picked up on the boat. Unexpectedly, the boat owner was a foreigner, so they had to talk through an interpreter. After answering a lot of nonsense questions, Mantle was led into the living room by the interpreter. He was very curious as to why there were no other survivors. The interpreter's face immediately changed, saying that Mantle was the first. Unexpectedly, at that age, Mantle saw a family of small boatmen come to ask for help. The next morning, he asked interpreter Victor if he had saved them. Victor told him not to ask any questions. Mantle, full of curiosity, went to the bow of the boat alone and saw a crew member searching for things next to the small boat that had been picked up yesterday. Mantle immediately understood that he had boarded the pirate's boat. Mantle rushed to find Victor. He guessed that Victor was also being forced, so he suggested that they run away together. He knew a hospital that had a helicopter, and Victor happened to be a pilot, so they could fly to the Canary Islands for refuge. Unexpectedly, Victor flatly refused and reminded Mantle that if he wanted to live, he should not cause trouble. Mantle could only think of a way to escape on his own. From then on, he packed up all his belongings and prepared to move into the cabin. Suddenly, he remembered that during the day, people often came in and out of that white-doored room. Out of curiosity, Mantle got up and squeezed inside. Here he suddenly saw the family members who had asked for help yesterday. Only 2 female members were missing. He hurriedly went to the hospital. The man was crying and wanted to go save his wife and children, then was immediately beaten to death by the guards. Mantle thought he would definitely die this time. Suddenly saw Victor coming. The guard was caught off guard and suddenly attacked. Mantle was standing by his side, looking evil. Unexpectedly, Victor killed the guard. It turned out that Victor had thought it through. He wanted to escape with Mantle. So when it was dark, the 2 of them went to the boat's net. But as soon as they got off the boat, they were discovered by the guards. Mantle immediately started the boat. Victor stood behind holding a gun and shooting back, but unfortunately got shot in the hand. Fortunately, the motorboat had left the firing range. Mantle parked the motorboat on the bank and took the wounded Victor to a parking lot. After searching around, he finally found a usable vehicle. Mantle quickly rushed Victor to the hospital. Victor's wound would definitely be fatal if not treated. The 2 of them walked through the deserted highway. Looking from afar, the entire city looked lifeless. With great difficulty, they reached the hospital. Mantle was extremely anxious because there was no helicopter at the helipad. At this moment, a large number of infected people heard the noise and ran over. Mantle, out of anger, fired continuously and finished them all off. The chance to reunite with his sister was shattered again. Mantle decided to treat Victor's wound first, and then the situation would come later. While he was preparing the disinfectant in the ventilation duct, the sound of children talking suddenly came from him. Mantle curiously followed the voice. He saw 2 children in a ventilation hole. But at this moment, an infected person came from behind. Mantle turned around and shot down the opponent. Unexpectedly, he made such a loud noise that many infected people came down. Mantle ran back to the operating room with his head down, but Victor was nowhere to be seen. When the infected person was about to break the door and rush into the pipe, a female doctor appeared. Mantle quickly crawled inside to escape the infected person's pursuit. In addition, there was a safe zone in the hospital, where the dean and the evil doctors hid with the children. Victor was rescued and brought here first. Victor's injuries were so severe that he needed immediate surgery. Louisa was able to remove the bullet from Victor's body before the doctor could reach him. Mantle was curious to know where the helicopter had gone. Louisa took him to the roof, but it turned out that when the helicopter was not in use, it was parked in the hospital's backyard. Unfortunately, the entrance was surrounded by infected people. Mantle did not want to give up. He kept running up to the rooftop to observe the terrain. At this time, he accidentally discovered that a group of armed molecules were coming in downstairs. He recognized that they were the group of people on the boat. Mantle suggested that they take the helicopter out now. Louisa immediately nodded in agreement because their supplies were running low. The groups carefully made their way through the pipeline. Seeing a locked door, Mantle tried to find a way to break the lock. But as soon as he broke the door, an infected person fell down. The director was immediately knocked down. Everyone worked together to solve it, but the director was already bitten by Hoa. They could only watch as the director left. Louisa was very sad, but she had more important tasks. A long time later, she brought everyone to the back door of the hospital. Looking out the window and seeing the sick people outside, Mantle came up with a bold idea. He closed the shelves into a circle, enclosing everyone inside. Halfway through, the infected discovered him. But even if they came, they wouldn't be able to harm the people inside in the short time they spent there. Mantle blocked the zombies that were trying to climb in while moving the shelf closer. With great difficulty, they reached the door and entered the helipad. Louisa locked the door and let everyone inside, leaving only the shelf blocking the door. Victor quickly climbed into the helicopter. Even though Mantle had locked the door, he still couldn't stop the zombies from crossing the fence. One day, he was attacked by a group of zombies and could not escape. The captain led his men to the river. They quickly shot the zombies outside the door and scared Victor out of the helicopter. Mantle secretly looked and signaled to Victor. Then he cut the lock of the door behind. A large number of infected rushed in while Mantle hid behind the door. When the captain's men were all wiped out, Victor ordered the helicopter to be launched. At this time, there were only a few infected left. Mantle helped the last few men and then jumped onto the helicopter's chain. After a near-death experience, everyone was finally able to reach a new refuge. But when they were about to reach the Canary Islands, Mantle's phone got a signal again and he received a call from his sister. Unexpectedly, the older sister was extremely panicked and advised her younger brother not to come here because the Canary Islands were also completely affected by the epidemic. Above is the entire content of the movie Tan Loi Jiak Koi Han Dai Dike. Do you think this movie is good? If it is good, give it a rating of 1. If it is normal, give it a rating of 2. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye and see you again.